Hi, everybody. Welcome to the desert. My name is Jeremy Corbell. My friends and enemies call me Four Name because I have four names: Jeremy, Kenyon, Lockyer, Corbell. I'm an accidental filmmaker, especially in this subject. I was a jiu-jitsu fighter. I did that my entire life, and I like to say at one point my curiosity got weaponized. I mean that literally, in the sense that there's nothing that would stop me from looking deeper into these subjects. I find them fascinating. I think everybody's got a piece to the puzzle, but none of us know the entirety of what's going on. There is a real phenomenon. I think it's much broader than is often perceived by an individual. And so it kind of made it my point to look into this. My initial introduction into these realms, luckily, I met George Knapp. He became a mentor to me as a journalist. I really looked up to him. He broke the Area 51 story. You all kind of know him from the Lazar case. You know, he kind of helped guide me. There's a powerful signal-to-noise problem since the beginning of looking at these topics. There's two layers of deception. One is the visitors themselves. The other is the intelligence agencies. And then the third actually would be ourselves. You know, we often take our own perspective and try to apply it to something we don't understand. And so I think that all those layers of kind of deception, even our own deception, causes a kind of unique way, a clouded way to look at these topics. For one, I don't even know that these are extraterrestrials. I know for a fact that there are aircraft in the sky that are flying with impunity, and they have been for a very long time, probably since back to antiquity. And I think a lot of the people in the government are just as confused, or people I've talked with, just as confused as we are. There may be a small section of people within or outside maybe of the United States government that control this information. That's what it appears with some of the witnesses I've talked with, but I don't know. So all I can do as a filmmaker is talk with people about what I say their beliefs are. Now, some people's beliefs are founded more in personal experience or, actual hands-on experience, and other people, it's not based on that. So I try to find the people that have hands-on experience and talk with them. A lot of them have happened to be scientists. I know that this panel is kind of about propulsion and science. Is that it, or something like that?
Definitely.
Okay, so let's talk about a couple topics on that. My initial introduction to the subject matter was actually through a number of military friends that I had. I learned a lot of information that I find very credible, and then a number of people I was connected to. So, for example, some of the people I've recently been filming with for my films, I did a short film on Lazar. I find his story fascinating, and I find his story important. And so I've been, spending a lot of my effort digging deeper into that. Next was John Lear, the godfather of conspiracy. Now, as an individual, what an incredible human being. I mean, at one time he was the youngest man ever to climb the Matterhorn as a kid. Only two people flew under the Golden Gate Bridge with a busted out engine. I mean, the guy's lived a crazy life, and he's got some incredible belief systems, out there. As a human being, I like to kind of look at people and say, how did you come to your understanding? Because I'm sure some of you have wild beliefs that are not congruent with mine either, but we're all looking at similar things. I'd like to get to understand. I'd like to get to meet people and look at what they think and how they got there. I'm also doing a whole series on a guy I call Nano Man. George Knapp and I released his real name. His name is Chris Cooper. He's a really, really fascinating scientist who works primarily in carbon nanotube thread construction, but also was working on a propulsion system that gave it a cool name, called it the space drive. But essentially the Navy was studying it, and through my naval contacts, that's who told me to go talk with him. And I filmed him now. This is my 5th year filming with him, and I've only released 2 shorts. So there's a bunch coming about his scientific endeavors, some of which will fall flat on their face, but other ones, because he's pushing the bleeding edge, have had and will have success. So success or failure, I love working with people who are really trying to push the envelope. And again, as my curiosity has been weaponized, that's what I'm going to try to do in my film work. So, are these extraterrestrials, extra-dimensionals, or extra-temporals? Who knows? Time and space is relative. And that's what's interesting. That's what's interesting to me. So there's a huge mystery here, and I, like you, am trying to get a little bit closer to that, and I think science is an aspect of that, and I'm sure a lot of you are here for a reason. You have some sort of interest in this subject, and I don't know if it stems from a personal experience. I have not had one myself that I can classify as, any UFO experience, but I no longer have the luxury of disbelief. If you spend any amount of time looking into this subject matter, there is a real phenomenon. But my perspective is it is so much stranger than just lights in the sky. And if you really look into the cases and you really talk with people and you go deep into this as a journalist, you will find that often the strangest aspects are not reported. So you all know about Skinwalker Ranch? Robert Bigelow just put Beam, right? So that's the inflatable space habitat that he hooked onto the ISS, and now they're planning a much bigger one. So at one point he bought this place called Skinwalker Ranch, where not only was there UFO activity, but there was also a whole bunch of what you'd call, for lack of a better term, paranormal, psychokinesis, like all these strange things were going on. He had a number of scientists studying it for years, trying to capture the phenomenon. And everybody I talked with who worked there on the ranch says that it was a trickster element, that it's not just about UFOs, that there's another aspect to this that in large we're missing. And it made me go back and read all of John Keel's books, if you read him. Fascinating stuff. Now, I got 2 points on propulsion. It's not my specialty or my field, but I document a number of people that work in propulsion, and 2 things that I found most fascinating. So one is there's a number of people working with new metamaterials, essentially materials that have not existed here on Earth before. There's a almost perfect atomic layerment now of these elements, which provides a completely significant different structure. And one of the guys I'm working with has something he's calling the space drive, and what's fascinating, and it's in its preliminary R&D phases, is he's looking to see if any of these metamaterials interact with the environment in a different way, and in fact he believes that they do. And he's getting small bits of propulsion, this is why the Navy was studying it, where you are getting propulsion off of a field that is yet to be described, is the best he can describe it. So I think that with the future of humanity moving forward, and with our printing abilities getting better and better and better, I think that we can create alloys, we can create metamaterials that may give us new properties, kind of like the stealth program, new properties we haven't seen before. Propulsion is what got me interested in this. And then I would also like to say, let's go 10,000 years in the future for humanity. We just, maybe 6 months ago, when was it, we measured and acknowledged the first gravity waves. So it only took a supernova for that, but essentially gravity is a wave. It's been theorized, now we know, that's cool, and just like any wave, you can amplify it. And again, who knows, unless there's a huge significant leap in technology for us humans, maybe 10,000 years, but potentially that is the most fascinating propulsion idea, is the amplification of gravity waves, distorting space-time itself. You need a high energy source, and then that's where you get into some crazy realms. But people are working on these things, both propulsion ideas, but also power sources. So I'd like to see humanity in at least 10,000 years to be able to amplify gravity waves and see what happens. Might, getting here much easier, to contact in the desert from wherever you live. I'm here like you, wanting to learn the truth, and I'm making films on it. So all my films are at extraordinarybeliefs.com, and I hope you engage them, and I hope we learn more in the years to come. Thank you for having me. Welcome to the desert. Yeah.